So, Halla, what's your story?
Um, my story begins pretty much with living memory, for me. Um, since I could remember, I was not well in my mind and my body. And I didn't really recognize the body stuff that much because I was like 4 or 5 years old, so didn't really care. But my mind, it troubled me because as a 5-year-old, you don't really have the concept of mortality. And for me, one of the first uh, memories I have around that time that wasn't suppressed by the years of trauma I have suffered um, was the thought of dying in an accident, an intrusive suicidal ideation. I was 5 and had just went to my first funeral of a great grandparent, and I'm also the first great grandbaby. So my mom was 20 when she had me. I'm 25 now. My great grandparents were in their late to mid 60s when I was born. So a lot of them were like late in health. This was also early 2000s. So it's like the healthcare was not that great. It was right before the Obama administration. So we did not have health, Obamacare, all that. So a lot of my family were just dying from curable stuff, which really sucked. And I was faced with that at a really early age, no matter how much my family tried to protect me from it. It just, I knew what death was way too early on. And it kickstarted something in my brain that years later, literally last year, 2024, I got officially diagnosed with level 1 autism. And I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 12. So to have those thoughts when I was just entering kindergarten, and then all of a sudden realizing coming face to face with everyone bullying me because I wasn't a special ed kid and did not have those diagnoses. I was just the weird, quirky kid, and just being targeted because I was weird and just naive and took everything way too literally really impacted me a lot. And a lot of my trauma, a lot of my ideations, a lot of it stems from that early age of being othered immediately once entering school. I hated school. I would lie to my mom and my grandma and my great grandma who I lived with till I was 7. Then we moved to our own little duplex a block away. And like throughout that entire time, the only people that I could trust were my teachers and like 1 or 2 friends. That changed 3rd grade because my teacher became my biggest bully. Um, context, I learned later after graduating, apparently she had a miscarriage and I was the ideal child she had wanted, and she took out her grief on me by punishing me for jittering my leg, by punishing me for not spelling one word on the 5-word spelling test correctly, holding me in at recess, all because I wasn't this perfect child, and because I acted like the child she wanted. It doesn't help that she was a newer teacher at the time, and it really sucked because even everyone in my class who had already like bullied me the years prior saw this and was like, "What the hell?" Like even they were like, "This is not okay." And then I transferred schools the next year to
What would
another elementary
what would
school.
she do that was like bullying too? She would like
She would single me out
us
a
her.
lot. She would single me out and call my mother a bad mother. She would make me the butt of a joke. She would make me the bad example. So I would be peer pressured into shutting up and listening when I knew something more than she did. Because I was a very smart kid. I was higher level, like, reading than everyone else in my class. I was already at 8th grade level reading at that time. I was a smart kid. And I was a creative kid. I was loved by my art teacher because I was really interested in art. But that 3rd grade teacher crushed me. in so many ways. And that was only like a little sand bit of school life for me. And that just got worse and worse. Fourth and fifth grade was hell. Like, my fifth grade teacher was like an extra grandma to me because that year, 2011, my great grandma passed away of ALS. And it was very traumatic for me because that was the first really close death to me. I was 11. I was terrified, and we would have a morning circle thing, and the day before we were supposed to bury her, my grandma, I was in the circle. It was my turn to speak and share what was going on. I broke down and fell from my chair onto my knees, saying my grandma had died and I wouldn't be in school tomorrow. And it didn't help that the day before I was bullied for having a crush on a kid that was sitting right across from me. So when I broke down sobbing, saying my grandma died, my teacher went quick and was like, "Hey, you're gonna be okay," and gave me a hug, tried to comfort me, sent me in the nurse's office just for grief. But when I came back, 5 to 6 of my classmates were making fun of me for crying. And at that point, I was already mentally checked out. I just started seeing everyone as an enemy or as someone who is going to hurt me eventually. I need to close myself off. And that's when the thoughts got really bad. Then middle school came. 6th grade, the bullying got even worse because puberty hit everyone hard. And I was, again, the main target. Because I was special ed, but I wasn't actually special ed. I was just weird and, excuse the slur that I'm going to say, retarded. That was yelled at me a lot. And I would be made fun of for every little thing. The way I had my hair, my glasses, the way I walked. Everything about me was nitpicked and made fun of. And then 7th grade was my first attempt. I had come home from my great-grandparents' house, who saw me every week on Wednesdays. They would take me to their house, give me cookies, love me unconditionally, and my great-grandpa was my father figure, because I didn't have a dad. I never knew him. My mom doesn't know who he is. I'm getting a DNA test currently from another resource company to figure out who he is so I can get medical history now. But that's a whole nother issue. But that night, 7th grade, I got home from my great-grandparents, walking at night, and I was crushed because that day I was kicked in the stomach by a person I called my friend. Because that friend was trying to impress my bullies. Because they were popular. And yeah, that sounds like the stereotypical, like high school drama, but this was middle school in the Midwest. There was not much mental health resources at the time. Not to mention, some of the biggest school shootings had happened, and not a week before, we had a lockdown because someone was shooting up a house right across the street from the middle school. So everyone was already on edge and taking it out on me. And then, that night, my parents were at home because they were out on a date, because I was old enough to walk on my own, and it was a safe neighborhood. Got home, we lived in a townhouse, got up to my room, and took a belt. One of my thick, little fun belts you would see at Claire's with the shiny stuff and studs. And I tightened it around my throat. And I started pulling, saying everyone would be better without me. Because at the time, my now stepdad was trying to work things out and trying way too hard to be my dad when I was still not okay with him being that, and punishing for little things that my neurodivergent brain could not understand, and punishing me for things that he couldn't understand about me. So I thought everyone else would be better off without me. So I tightened and tightened. I hadn't left a mark yet, but I was starting to struggle to breathe, and at the time I had very bad asthma. So it would have killed me pretty quickly. And then, before I really pulled, I thought about my great-grandparents and how they would be devastated to see the first, and at the time only, great-grandchild die before they hit their actual teenage years. I was 12. I was around 12 to 13. And so I stopped, looked at my neck to make sure nothing was wrong. There was no marks. The only marks were like right here, so I could hide them easily with my hair. And put that away. Got out my DSI and my really crappy Fire tablet that my mom got for free on the Black Friday the year before, and just started watching YouTube and playing Pokemon Black and White, which I still have that game. I just have a different DSI now. But that was the first of many attempts, and high school was no better.
And do you think like that? Well, so it all originated with the bullying in middle school, and then do you feel that the whole situation with your stepfather kind of was the final push over the edge? So you go to school, you're not safe, and for lack of a better term, you're not safe. You're not
Yeah.
wanted. You said a term I never heard. You said othered.
Yeah, othered.
What does that mean? I've never heard that before. I mean, I have no idea of what it means, but
pretty much think like, oh, that person is not like us. We must other them to make sure that we have our consciences clear. They are no longer human. They are other. They are the other option.
So it's like ostracizing somebody.
Ostracizing, dehumanizing. Pretty much white supremacy blanketed in just a term of, oh, that person's not like me, so they must be bad. I must hurt them because they deserve it. That kind of thing.
Right. So you go to school, you're othered. You go home, in a sense, you're othered there, maybe.
Yeah, and my mom did not really stand up for me at the time. Thankfully, she has gotten better now, but at one point it was just a bit too late, and I almost went no contact with her and my stepdad. The only reason why I didn't was because my grandma, her mom, was sick, and I was her caretaker some days. So I kind of had to stay in contact, and they were paying me as like supplementary income to help her. And after that time, my mom finally was like, wait, this is why you don't talk? And I'm like, yeah. A lot of shit happened that you looked over and thought was fine. It wasn't.
Do you think she did it intentionally, or do you think she was just naive to...
She was naive. She has ADHD herself. But she was also born in 78. She was born in a very weird time for mental health. And for her, it was suck it up and deal with it, and you can power through your ADHD. No meds needed. Turns out, her kid needed a lot of help, and she ignored the doctors on that. Because before she met my stepdad, actually no, right after she met my stepdad, and she found our Aunt Chrissy. She found our aunt. My aunt looked at me for less than a minute and told my mom, your kid's autistic, go get her tested. I was very obvious being autistic, especially for a girl. Because for a girl, autism is rarely diagnosed as a kid, because we're just seen as talkative and quirky and just happy-go-lucky and emotional. But I had sensory issues. Like really bad sensory issues, and I still do now. I cannot touch microfiber. I cannot look people in the eyes. As you can tell, I fidget with my hands. A lot of things are really difficult for me to do. Socialization, one of them, and that led into the bullying, is because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was doing. And no one gave me a guidebook to tell me what was going on. Social cues, right over my head. Gone. Sarcasm, over my head. And that's what's made the bullying worse, because I couldn't tell if someone was being truthful or lying to my face. And when I figured out they were lying, betrayal caused trauma. And for me, in my personal autistic experience, betrayal is worse than breaking a bone. Worse than being shot. Because that betrayal, I feel it everywhere. It feels like my heart is being squeezed relentlessly and then burned with a hot steak at the same time.
And
It's
so,
awful.
do you think that you feel more like, I don't know how to phrase this. So betrayal, like we obviously know what betrayal is, but you're saying you have sensory issues, and then
Yeah,
the way you perceive things can be different. So do you think that you're perceiving betrayal in situations that might not be traditionally classified as betrayal, and that made it even worse?
yeah. Because some people are just like, oh, it was a white lie. You're fine. It's not harmful. But for me, yeah, it was harmful. It ruined my perception of that person. It ruined my perception of the world that they had created around me. And it's a common experience, sadly, for autistic people, especially when they're younger, to find that out in harsh ways. Because sometimes you look at someone that you think is your friend, when really they're just using you as free entertainment. And that happened a lot to me, especially in high school. Because middle school was really rough, high school was no better. Senior year was the roughest of them all. But that entire time, I was all the cliques and stuff. Like, we had the jocks, the cheerleaders, they were the popular kids, and oddly enough, in my school, they were pretty chill people. A few of them were assholes, but that's kind of a dime a dozen. Then you had the nerds, then you had the drug addicts, then you had everyone else who couldn't really fit anywhere. Every single one of those groups, little mini groups of friends, would just go, I like her, yoink, and pulled me into their friend groups. So I was in so many friend groups, but I didn't know anybody. Like, I knew a few of them, but I was using free entertainment because of the wacky shit I just blurt out. Because as a kid, I didn't really have much of a filter because I didn't know how to build a filter. I wasn't even in therapy till I was 18 and out of high school. My mom, one, couldn't afford it, and our insurance was being an asshole. But a lot of it was literally just, I was told that, oh, you're funny, in the most condescending way, and I take it as a genuine compliment, which made make them laugh and keep poking the bear, so to say. Until one day, um, during lunch, there was a lot of drama going on that I was sadly forced into. It was between a couple of my friends, and some accusations were pulled around by one person who I thought was really cool and awesome. And it was an accusation that turned later out to be false. It was a really serious allegation. The guy came up to me and asked, hey, are you okay? And I just snapped. No one had seen me snap like that since middle school. I angrily yelled, almost screamed at the top of my lungs to leave me the fuck alone. And I started crying in the middle of the lunchroom, which used to be my old school's gym back in the 60s. So this school was old and echoey. Everyone in the lunch heard me. And then I got stared at. And we're like, what's her problem? And then I heard murmurs and the voice got way too loud. But we were not allowed to leave the lunchroom. So I just sat there and cried. While my few friends at the time who had stayed with me and actually were my friends, and two of them are now my going to be maids of honors, and I'm still friends with them years later, comforted me and asked, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I want to go home. I want to get away. I want to die. And so they took me to the office, which thankfully was connected to the lunchroom, and said, hey, she needs a counselor now. She's breaking down. The counselors were all out on lunch, so I just sat in the office, sobbing, with a very awkward receptionist who did not know what to do. And a lot of school is, memory wise, is blacked out. I don't remember barely anything besides the traumatic bits, the really funny bits, or prompted memories. Well, internet. Because the trauma, and because I keep saying trauma. It is complex PTSD. I have micro traumatic instances that were constant and constantly going on for me, and that is a sadly common diagnosis for people with autism to have complex PTSD, or just PTSD in general, because we just have continuous traumatic experiences because we feel more than a normal person would. We can't block out the sounds. We can't block out the taste, the touch, the sights. We are hyper aware of everything. We may not be listening directly to you, but we're listening to everything around us, whether we like it or not. So I can hear the fan clicking. I can hear the refrigerator buzzing. I can hear the lights going tick, 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 tick. I can hear all the tiny little sounds. So when people are loud, all of a sudden I flinch because all of a sudden, whoa, where'd that come from? There was no warning, and I'm terrified. And that never got better. That got worse as I got older. Because I had big emotions I had to hide and suppress. And I found out recently that suppressing your emotions long enough makes you have memory loss. And now I have a horrible memory due to all the trauma I've experienced. And it sucks. It's devastating.
When you to back up just a little bit, you
Yep.
said some micro traumas. Is that what you
Yes.
So
Like,
what is a micro trauma? Is that something that happens to you and you kind of internalize it more than the average person's, like somebody calls you a name or something, or is it
yeah,
something that is
it's
happening that's
it's
worse?
something that a neurotypical person would just brush off and just go, "Oh, that was mean," and then not remember it the next day. But like someone giving you a mean look, you notice it. And for me, as neurodivergent, in my experience, because everyone's different, it's a big spectrum of how people perceive things. For me, it's I notice that, and then I start to notice everything else. Like at first, I had like that rose tinted glasses type thing. That's a rose tinted visor until someone flicks it and breaks it, and then my world just shatters over and over and over again. It happens a lot. And I call them micro traumas. That's technically not the real term for them, but that's the best way I could describe it. And the best way I can really describe some of these things is just you feel like you're getting gut punched every time you remember something. And an example for me is that grief. People handle grief in many ways. Most time it's linear. Not for me. When my great grandpa died in 2020 of natural causes, he was 88 years old. He was at the end of his life and survived 3 types of cancers, beating them all in his old age. He was a trooper, loved him so much. His death hit me so hard that every year around the same time, around November, I experienced the exact same gut punch of grief as the first call that I heard that he had passed away. It's fresh every time. And it's traumatizing to all of a sudden realize, oh no, it's happening again. And it getting worse and worse over time. Especially if you're not in therapy or on medication, if you need them. For me, I'm on high strength antidepressants, high strength anti anxietants, and I have therapy every 2 weeks. And it took a while for me to get on those meds to begin with, which really sucked. It's just traumatic all around because I experience and re-experience hard emotions, whether I like to or not. And if I try to suppress them, it makes it worse.
So you're in high school, and all this sort of comes to a head at that time. This is like a everything has sort of led up to this point. Your whole childhood, all of the bullying, the not being safe at home thing, and then everything kind of comes to a head at this point in your life.
Yeah.
And then so you attempt again there.
Yeah. That attempt was very brief. I just tried to run in front of a car, but I have this primal fear of pain. So I was frozen at the edge of the sidewalk as a car buzzed past me. And I was just dissociated. I had no thoughts. I couldn't see anything. I was just there, standing, frozen in my own thoughts. And that day was eye-opening ish, but in the wrong way. That it wouldn't be worth it to die because no one would care either way. So might as well live and just be here anyways because no one would care. So the rest, and that was at the beginning of senior year. So the rest of that year, I was just numb and just didn't care. I just stopped caring. And that's when my mom finally took me to therapy after I graduated. And then my therapist told my mom, get her on medication or she will die. And my mom finally listened to a medical professional after years and got me on meds. Actual good meds, not just one pill of ADHD medication that my body got used to within a month. But yeah, when I finally started getting the help I needed, I finally was able to not be afraid to go outside my room. Because before that happened, because there was 2 months before I was in therapy, and for that 2 months, I never left my room unless my best friend told me we were hanging out. I was terrified of public transport. I was terrified of going outside by myself. And I was terrified doing anything alone because I was afraid someone was going to hurt me. Anyone. If I got on the bus, I thought I was going to be shot or that someone was going to punch me just for existing. And that got me an official diagnosis of agoraphobia, the fear of being alone in large spaces or in any space that you are not familiar with. Or for me, it's any space with people I don't know. And if I'm not with someone or I see someone that I know, I'm terrified. I don't speak up. I hide. I leave if I can. And thanks to therapy, that's not as bad as it was, but it was horrid when I was 18, 19 years old.
So now you're able to leave the house and you're able to come and go freely and
Yeah,
maybe
most of the time. Now it's physical, chronic illnesses that were not seen till now. Because other medical neglect and no medical history of these things. Love the medical care system. Ugh.
So since high school, where do you find yourself today? So where do you stand today in terms of you know, mental wellness and the temps and all this?
Well, I had a scare last year, in October. I had just started college. It was my second month in. There was an incident online with some of my friends, well, at the time friends, no longer my friends, and an incident happened where they accused me of things, and I didn't know they were accusing me of things. They just banned me and stopped talking to me and blocked me with no warning. Wait, that was later. one of my friends who I'd helped bring up here had an issue with them, and I was going to school, and all of a sudden, a weekend before, the Sunday before the 1st of October, which was a Tuesday that year, I tried to commit, but I was too weak and shaky because of my chronic illnesses to even try. And so my fiance thankfully was home. He came in, held me like I asked him to, and just helped me calm down. I then also went over to a friend's house to be by them because they're also my support system. But then 2 days later, when I go to class, my body decided to, oh, you didn't do it? Well, we're going to do it for you, and sent me to the ER. That was the first of 2 instances that month of my body deciding, oh, your brain says you don't want to die, but we're going to say you want to, because subconsciously you do. And the second one, I was put on an overnight psych hold because I didn't feel safe enough to go home. I didn't feel safe enough around myself. And that was the first ever psych hold I've ever been on. And it was so isolating. And I hated it. If anything, it kind of made me worse. I just wanted to go home. And it sucked. And those 2 incidences of my body just not being okay, my mind not being okay, made me withdraw from school. Haven't been able to go back. And then I started having pseudo micro seizures that did not show up in an MRI due to all the stress that my body was under from all that. And it sucked. It sucked so much.
And so, do you still the suicidal ideation? Does it still persist in your mind? Like, do you still have it every day, or is it
No, after
kind
that
of?
point, we upped my dose on my antidepressants, and I got on a regular schedule of taking them in the morning. But now I have intrusive ones that just come in and then go. They're very much just, I'm not actively thinking. They just go, you should jump in front of the road, and then dash out of my head. And I'm like, why did I think that? Okay. And then I redirect my brain to do something else.
It's almost like an OCD type
It's
intrusive.
something like that. For me, it's more connected to ADHD. I don't have an official OCD diagnosis because I don't have much of the symptoms for that. But I do have BPD, which that's not bipolar. It is I forgot the term. It is pretty much I have extreme mood swings that happen at the drop of a hat if something triggers that mood swing. Most time it's called splitting. It's like someone best way to describe it's like, oh, I'm like really interested in talking about this certain thing, and all of a sudden says I don't care, and they cut me off, and my mood just into anger and sadness from happy, excited, like just oh my god, I'm so happy to share this with you, to oh, okay.
So, like, was that when you exploded in the cafeteria room that time? So, like, and that would be an instance of that.
Yeah, it was a instance of that. And I just remembered another time in high school. I had an English teacher for 12th grade. Hated him. He's not a good teacher. At all. His wife is. He is not. But I had a project. We had a project where we had to make an ad for a documentary on a topic of our choosing. And my project workers had to stop because one of them transferred out of the class, didn't tell anyone, and the other had work. So I was working on it alone. And we were not told that it was only supposed to be that amount of time. It was not on the syllabus, it was not written anywhere. And that night that I realized that I was emailed that by my teacher, I broke down in front of my mother. Had 7 panic attacks, one right after the other. the entire night and begged my mother to let me drop out of high school. I begged her and even threatened to kill myself that night if she didn't allow me to. And I think she did this subconsciously because she apologized it for later on. But she pulled the saying, so I'm a bad mother. Parents, if you're listening, don't ever say that to your kids. That damages them more than you think. Because then they're going to hate themselves more than you will ever know. And you gotta really beat that in. Don't say that. Don't. And so, at the time, I was not a person. I was not me. I was everyone else's little plaything. So when my mom said that, I turned into people pleasing and still had a panic attack and everything, but I went to comfort my mother in the middle of my crisis when I should have been taken to a hospital. I should have been put on a psych hold that night due to how violently I was screaming about wanting to end myself. My mom didn't do that, and here I am now, having suffered years of trauma, unable to really think about memories, and trying to figure out who I am as a person still.
It seems like you have a good foundation of, I mean, maybe just a, outside looking in, you know, the way I could see, but it seems like, you have a pretty good foundation of who you are and what your values are. I mean, if I'm wrong, I apologize, but
It's taking me a long time to realize that, especially after escaping high school. Because the pandemic happened, and I finally was able to just figure myself out. And I learned a lot about myself. And then unlearned things about myself that I thought were true. And now I have a wonderful fiance who's helping me figure myself out more and being my advocate for things I've never been able to advocate for myself because I'm too terrified to.
right.
I still have that primal fear of hurting people unintentionally because I said something wrong. He is unapologetic and will just say it for me.
Well, it's healing. I think is not linear, right?
Yeah,
It's
no, it never is.
all it's backwards, sideways, whatever you want
The
to call it.
best way to explain it for me, it's been a roller coaster. Like, you have your ups, your downs, and sometimes you have your loop-de-loops and your twists and your turns, and it's sometimes very jarring, sometimes very nice and slow and easy, and it's just time with grief and healing is unpredictable. The only thing you can give yourself is preemptive stepping stones for when life hits a wall or life hits that sharp turn. You just kind of have to prepare yourself in that way, especially if you're neurodivergent, is to have those resources, especially to get yourself the help you need.
And going through all those experiences, it's like you have X amount of experiences you've gone through, all these instances of pain, suffering, and so when a new one comes up, maybe you could reach into you know that bag of past experiences, but okay, I could handle this.
Yeah,
Okay, and
and
every time maybe it'll be a little less, a little less, a little less, a little less, and maybe that's just the way
that's
you know
pretty much
healing.
how it goes. It's literally
Yeah.
just you have to learn from your past, especially for people who are neurodivergent. You have to really reach in there and figure out, okay, here's how this is working, here how this is working, all that. And it's hard to do sometimes because sometimes something is so similar yet so different that you don't know how to handle it, and it takes you a bit to realize, oh, this is what happened. Oh
Who's
my god.
these somebody who's neurodivergent, you're perceiving things as maybe I don't know, say worse than they are, but you're receiving them more heightened
Yeah,
than maybe somebody who doesn't.
yeah, and
Suffering is even harder.
yeah. And it doesn't help that in a lot of spaces, neurodivergent and disabled people specifically no matter, especially if they're POC, like if they're people of color, like black people, brown people, Asian people, all of them are like, I have white privilege. I am whiter than white, and I understand that. And I know that my experiences are not uncommon, but they're not as bad, like, not as horrid as how they feel. Because sometimes POC cannot get the help they need, and they're just left to suffer. And the best way to describe it is, if you see your friend struggling, no matter their skin tone, no matter their disability, offer to listen first and then ask how you can help. Listen to people. Don't just say, get over it or anything like that. Listen. Actively listen. Because if people actively listened to me back in high school, middle school, elementary school, I wouldn't be as traumatized as I was back then and now. So, especially with your kids, listen to them because they are unfiltered. They say how they feel. They don't lie. They only lie if they think they're going to be in trouble. Listen to your kids.
It's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. No doubt this can help a lot of people. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem.